One thing that us Cubans and Venezuelans have in common, we fucking hate liberals and Democrats, which is why liberals and Democrats are extremely pro illegal immigration, except if you're coming from Cuba or Venezuela. Well, in those cases, they don't want those immigrants there. Maybe they don't like the sauce we bring. They like the other immigrants, but they don't like us. I guess they're selective. So I didn't really know we had this much in common with Venezuelans, but we do. And let's go over some of their grievances today, and then we'll address what people have been claiming about this alleged kidnapping, shall we?
When they were killing us, where were you when they were killing students who didn't have any weapon? You were too freaking busy drinking your Starbucks with oat milk. So you better shut the fuck up and take Venezuela out of your filthy mouth. If you are not from Venezuela, you better shut the fuck up. I've seen a lot of videos of gringos trying to explain Venezuela to Venezuelans. You don't even know the difference between Venezuela and Mexico. You can't even point Venezuela in a fucking map. You don't.
That's crazy. I used to get that issue with Americans, especially, I don't know why. It's something about blacks and gays in America. They love Marxism and communism. But also, even though they pretend that they don't like slavery, they yearn for it. They want to go back. They loved the concept of living on a plantation. You don't got to pay rent. So that means you don't have to be a squatter. Your food is free, so you don't need EBT. And you don't really have to steal anything because the owner of the plantation will give you free clothing. You would be surprised how many people have literally wasted a vote on Kamala Harris and other Democrats, hoping to get back to a communist, Marxist, socialist utopia that just have never worked anywhere else. And then they say, oh, well, we never tried it the right way. They've tried it every way. It doesn't work. But the beautiful thing about the world is that you have the option to go there. Go live in a socialist, communist country. The United States is a capitalist country. Actually, we're a republic. If you want to live under a democracy in a socialist communist, you have options. We're just not going to do it here. People don't understand what it's like to live in one of these countries. I know because my family fled. And I was taught to understand exactly why and the true history of it. The same issues you're seeing here in the United States, where there are certain communities of people that just go around the country and on television, just sowing discontent, telling you that you should hate your country, hate your flag, hate your Pledge of Allegiance, hate your president. Those are the same people that want this country to be Venezuela. That California is the closest thing we have to a Venezuela. It's a dictatorship. They're moving. All the people with money are being forced out of the state. No one can stay with any money. No one worth over $200,000 is going to be able to stay in California. They're removing cars. They don't want you to drive. They want you to be stuck on a big, large plantation. And to keep the benefits like the free food and your free housing and all your free shit, you're going to have to keep the ruling class of Democrats in power. And then you have a permanent Democrat supermajority indefinitely. The same bullshit by using fraud they tried to do to the rest of the country. Luckily, whatever they were going to do, we were able to stop them. Trump prevailed. But that's what they want for us, the pain, the suffering. I try to tell people, soon as California started going communist, I evacuated. I'm a refugee in Texas now. I remember when they were telling people to stay home, not for a week, stay home for years. I remember when they turned off paying rent, not for weeks. We didn't have to pay rent for years. Same as in Cuba, because we don't have money. That's what they tell you about equity. They want everyone to be equally poor. Now, if you're a lazy piece of shit like these communists and Marxists who are bums, they don't want to work. They want you to work and your tax money feeds them. I personally choose not to live like that, which is why we left. But think about it. My country's not empty. Everyone doesn't want to leave. There are millions of people around the world who love and prefer communism. Unfortunately, some of them are still here in the United States and they need to be relocated. And soon that will be the case. Once the law of the land is to remove birthright citizenship, we will be able to happily send people to places where they are going to finally be happy. But in the meantime, we have to deal with those that are going to sit out here and tell Latinos, tell Venezuelans, tell Cubans that we should hate Trump. We fucking love the guy. He's amazing. We know what it's like to have the opposite. I wasn't necessarily a Trump supporter until I saw what the Democrats did to California, my home. What I saw what liberal policies did around the world in other countries that I lived in. It showed me that America is the greatest country on earth and that we are unique and that we are special and that our Constitution sets us apart from anywhere else on earth. And it must be respected.
What is to live in starvation? You never saw a family member dying because you didn't have the medication, while the members of the Chavismo are walking with Rolex in their hand. Do you want to know how many people died trying to come to America, going through a jungle? Do you want to know how many women were raped there? We are 8 million of Venezuelans who have left Venezuela. You don't know what is to live like that. You are too freaking busy eating your Starbucks with almond milk, you motherfucker. I have a question for you guys. Where were you when they were killing us? Where were you when they were killing students? Students who didn't have any weapon. You were too freaking busy drinking your Starbucks with oat milk.
No, they were too busy trying to figure out how to legalize or decriminalize pedophilia here in the United States. And that's the right that they all refer to. The men's gay choir of San Francisco, the trans, they all refer to, we're losing our rights. The only right that they've lost is sexual access to children. They were expecting that to go around the country to be decriminalized the way it is in California. Trump and Charlie Kirk speaking about it reversed that policy. Do you understand the connections? Are you starting to see now how things change for them? Which is why they're so disgruntled and so happy. So they're so unhappy.
Venezuela. People are criticizing Trump for what he did in Venezuela. They say he bombed and kidnapped our president. No. Let me be clear. That man was never our president. He is a dictator. We didn't vote for him. Our elections were stolen. And when we protested, our kids were sent to prison. Minors were tortured. Girls were forced to prostitute themselves in prisons just to get food.
Now, if you guys don't remember, initially it was a stolen election. They did hold another election a couple of years ago. Maduro lost. Actually, Maduro lost when Biden was president a few years ago. Biden put a $25 million bounty on Maduro because after he lost the elections, he said, too bad, I'm not fucking leaving. And he stayed in office. Biden, under the Biden administration, he became a criminal and a $25 million bounty. Okay, Trump just made good on the bounty. We went and picked him up. Then we drove him around the city of New York, and we displayed him to all the Venezuelan people in the city. I don't know how you guys did not see this last night. I have a couple of friends who told me they didn't see this video, but okay, I'll show it to you. Yeah, he was not.
You are not from
Let's see here. Let's see. Right here, Rico Limbaugh. Nope. Let's go. This is what we did. This is what happened to Maduro last night when he was arrested. They flew him directly into New York City, and they literally drove him around in a truck, and they basically made a display out of him. Let's see here. Maduro, back of truck, NYC. Let's see here. Maduro, back of truck, NYC. the hell?
What's up with men? I don't know. I wanted to ask you, men don't come up and ask or talk to you anymore. There was this cute guy. He went.
Okay, top. I'm already logged into my account. Why is this a problem? Jeez Louise, this is like, it's like slowing down the flow. Okay. Logged in, okay. Maduro in the back of a truck. Right here. That's the truck. Maduro is in the back of this truck, and Trump is driving him all around the city of New York so people can look at him and yell at him. This is the most gangsterish shit I've ever seen in my life. Literally, he's driving Maduro around the city of New York to show off that we have their leader, their dictator, and we're letting Venezuelan people yell at him. And they're doing it. That's what we've done to their so-called leader. He wasn't kidnapped. He was removed. He refused to step down from office. He was a communist dictator that was literally open to selling ports in our hemisphere to Iran, Russia, and China. And our hemisphere is for the Americans. There's not going to be any other influence in our part of in our backyard. We're just not going to have it. Which is why, unfortunately, we're going to also have to bring to heel Sheinbaum in Mexico and the little Colombian guy, because he's talking a little spicy. You know, we don't really play those games very well. You know, you got to think about it. Venezuela is a way wealthier country. Actually, Venezuela was the wealthiest country in South America until the people were tricked into voting into communism. Same thing that happened in Cuba. The darker population is envious of the fair-skinned population, but they outnumber them also. And when you appeal to the dark people and you tell them the cure to racism is communism. So vote for us, vote for communism, and we're going to make everyone equally poor. That way you're not just dark and poor, we'll make everybody poor. The dark people love it. The fair-skinned people flee. Why do you think everyone who lives in Miami that's Cuban looks like my mom, but then everybody else that lives in actual Cuba is darker than me? It looks like me. There is a reason for that. You're going to see that in other parts of Latin America as well. It's something about certain people. They sow discontent. They want slavery. They're begging for it. And then a lot of us don't want it. We reject it. We believe in free. We actually believe in freedom. Freedom of self-determination, free to work as much as I want, not free to let the government take care of me or take care of my kids or feed me or save me. You guys want to be saved by the government. We want the government to get out of our way. We're different types of Americans. And we're not going to be able to coexist for much longer. You guys want to go, you guys want Maduro in Venezuela, but you won't relocate there. Don't worry. We have an answer for that.
Get a piece of bread. And where were you then? Where were all of you, liberals? Where were all of you? Where were all of you? You said nothing. You did nothing. But now you suddenly care about international law? I mean, now you all talk about human rights? Maduro didn't lead Venezuela. He kidnapped an entire country. So, no.
It's not possible for Trump to steal an election. That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense. And the evidence isn't there. Now, if you have that type of evidence, why haven't you called the police department and filed charges? I'm not the place where we're not going to hold court here. Why don't you get in your car, right? Or get on a Lime little scooter and go to your nearest police station and say, hey, I have secret documents that no one's ever seen. I have proof that Trump tried to steal an election. What does that even mean? Do you know it's your First Amendment right to contest something? You're able to speak in your own defense. If you feel like an election was fraudulent or if there was fraud at all, it's your right to challenge these election results. That's not called stealing. And that's ridiculous that you think that. And you sound like Maduro and his people, which is why we don't get along. We're not going to ever get along with communists and Marxists. You guys are anti-American. You guys are anti-human. So it's really much. This guy right here has been fighting you and your people his entire life. You're the reason we have a refugee crisis in the first place in multiple countries. And he's literally telling you with all of his heart exactly how this happened.
We didn't vote for him. Our elections were stolen. And when we protested, our kids were sent to prison. Minors were tortured. Girls were forced to prostitute themselves in prisons just to get food, to get a piece of bread. And where were all of you then? Where were all of you, liberals? Where were all of you? Where were all of you? You said nothing.
Yeah, where were they? Did the liberals try to stage a intervention? Did they offer to grab weapons and go down to save these people in Venezuela? No. But now you guys want to protest because we took away their dictator. Protest all you want. We've learned the key is to just ignore you people, and then we'll get around to you later when we have a little bit more time on our hands. But right now we're busy doing God's work. But soon enough we'll have time for you.
You did nothing, but now you finally care about international law. I mean, now you all talk about human rights. Maduro didn't leave Venezuela. He kidnapped an entire country. So no, Trump didn't kidnap anyone. No, he did not. He removed our kidnapper. And for that, we're thankful. You can divide politics all you want, but don't tell Venezuelans, do not tell Venezuelans how to feel about being free from a dictatorship. Venezuela.
You know, it's crazy reading some of these people in the comments. They're the type of person that when a person says they were raped, they go to them and they say, you know, maybe you shouldn't have been wearing that skirt. Maybe it's your fault. It's like they're victim blaming. They're literally arguing with people in Venezuela and telling them the man who kidnapped you was really your savior. And we wish with all our might that he was our president. That's what they wish. And because they're insane, they're psychos and everything, no matter what it is, they just hate Trump. It's all about hating Trump. That's it. They're not standing on anything else. There's nothing solid there on their foundation. It's just, I hate Trump.
Talking about Venezuela, and you have never been in Venezuela. You have no idea what's going on.
I've only been to Venezuela once. I went to Caracas. I have my ex-girlfriend's from there. I actually live in I live in Colombia part-time, so I go back and forth. Beautiful people, bad situation that just got a lot better. And you talk about self-deporting. Do you know how beautiful of a country Venezuela is? These people are already lining up at airports to return home, to make Venezuela great again, all because of Donald Trump. And there's nothing you can do to take away from that. You're going to have to go to sleep tonight with your TDS. You're going to have to wake up and you're going to have to think about it. You can't even lie your way out of it because, well, now you're going to have to literally fight with the same people that are now free. And you're going to have to try to argue with them to convince them that they were better off under the slavery of a dictator. But I thought you didn't like dictators. You just had a No Kings protest. Now you're defending King Maduro. You're a double-minded psychopath. That's why nobody takes you seriously anymore. We humor you in conversations, but you're being ignored for the most part.
You never research. You don't have friends that are from Venezuela. Keep your opinions to yourself. We have been waiting for 27 years to get free from this government. We don't care what are the alternate motives or what is the whole behind it. We don't care. And most of the Venezuelan...
Let me tell you, I'm Cuban. My family's from Cienfuegos. If they told me Trump was going to invade Cuba today so that he can be in control of the world's largest supply of fucking mojito juice, I wouldn't give a fuck why he's there. I just want him there. We've lost almost, it'll be almost a century. A trade embargo that's out of this world and communism that literally destroyed our entire economy. We have been poor and starving for generations. There's no upward mobility. There's no way to make money. And the only people with money that come there are foreigners. You know, I remember I bought tickets to go to a New Year's celebration for my birthday at the Copacabana. The tickets were it was like $180. But yet the average Cuban only makes $30 per month. So when you go to these events, and I've been to events in communist countries before, it's all foreigners. There's no locals at these events or in these spaces. It's crazy. Even where I live in Colombia, there's no Colombian men. It's just, you see a bunch of pretty women everywhere, but none of the locals, and all my neighbors are foreigners. I'm not the only one. We're all foreigners because the locals can't afford what we can in our area. It's the same thing in Venezuela, same thing in Cuba. We would love for that to change. The problem is we're disarmed in our countries, so we can't revolt. The only people that have weapons are the military. Why do you think the Democrats and the liberals are always trying to use gun violence, except when the mass shooter is black, to convince you to give up your weapons? They want you to live in Venezuela. They want you to live like the Cubans. They want, and then the people here in America, they want to live like that. They want to get government cheese. They want to live off the state, but they want you to be poor too because they have insecurity complexes about their work ethic. And they feel like we're looking down on them because we perform and we do better. And they feel like they're so poor. You got to think about it. These Americans complain about how they've been poor this whole time. How is it that immigrants can come here and run laps around you? And I'm not talking about the Somalian immigrants because obviously they're running laps around us. These motherfuckers are. You ever seen the TV show Flash? That's the kind of laps these Somalian immigrants are running around us. I'm just a regular worker. My family's regular worker immigrants. We're farmers that came here. They recruited us to work on farms. Then we worked on the piers and became longshoremen. That's how my family got to California. Well, we were in Northern California. Then we went to Southern California to work on the docks. But these Somalians went straight to the daycares. So they're in Seattle, Minnesota. So they're doing different types of laps. They're running backwards laps. They're Michael Phelps in it on land. We're just different. We're just regular worker immigrants. We don't have the plugs like that, okay? But how these Americans who have been here, they're like, well, white people have a 400-year head start. And I'm like, but you have a 150-year head start. Actually, 175 now. So what's your excuse? Oh, your excuse is, well, you hate capitalism and you think white supremacy is why you grew up to be a piece of shit and a bum. That's not true. And the policies in the United States changing so that everyone's more poor, it's not going to make you look better. You're still going to be yourself. So begging for communism while remaining in the United States, you're really just shooting yourself in the foot. You're better off evacuating to another country and finding some place that you like, that you agree with the policies. You know, think about it. People are talking about how much they hate Trump in these comments. And I'm like, well, why don't you go fight him? Why are you scared of Trump? What are you so scared of? My next video is going to be, why are you so afraid of Trump? Because I'm going to challenge people. If you're so mad at Trump, go fight him. What are you scared of? You know, there's like multiple countries we're bombing right now. You can fly to these countries and then take a shuttle to where we're bombing and they'll arm you. You can just fight Trump. What are you doing over here crying? Go fight him. Go get it up. Turn up. Don't let us stop you. But we're going to celebrate Trump. I like what he's doing. I like his results. If he can give me those results in Cuba, bro, estoy listo para regresar. Pronto, hey, bro, ya me voy. Think about how much my American dollar is going to be worth there. And I'm not going to be arrested if I'm speaking to the locals because they would think you're contaminating them with your capitalist propaganda. That is a fear. That's actually a criminal charge where people are arrested if they're talking to foreigners or vice versa. They like literally, that's why I tell people are like, oh, you ever go back and visit Cuba? And I'm like, did the guys who escaped from Alcatraz ever go back to visit Alcatraz? I had an uncle, they held him for like 3 months. And just because he's of Cuban descent, he used to, when he's a kid, he goes to visit. It's communist. It's nonsensical, but its days are limited because remember, only the United States will have influence over our hemisphere. Cuba, Venezuela, Mexico, they're all in our hemisphere. This is our backyard. We're just shoring it up because think about it. We can't allow the Russians or the Chinese or the Iranians to come do a deal with the Russians. To come do a deal with the Cubans or the Mexicans. And obviously the Venezuelans, they were flirting with doing port deals where they were going to, because, the Chinese will come in and they'll build a huge port in your country in like 3 days. they'll send a bunch of Chinese contractors and employees, and then bam, they have a beachhead in our hemisphere. We know they have ports in Brazil. We are going to also have those removed one way or the other. But for now, we're just going to make some examples. Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, you're on notice.
People that that they are not living in Venezuela, they didn't left because they wanted to look for better opportunities. Most of us left because we have no freedom. We have no freedom of speech. We cannot talk about the economy. We cannot talk about what's going on. We cannot talk about politics. We cannot talk about anything in Venezuela.
You know how crazy it is? There's people that get online, get into my comments, and they tell me not to talk about these exact same things. Nobody ever tells me in person because, these people don't really want to fight. But they tell you on the internet, they say I'm telling you, these people love anybody who's unhappy about what Trump just did. They love communism. Maybe it isn't tricky. Maybe they don't connect the dots in their head. They don't understand what they're supporting, but they love Maduro. They love communists. They love slavery. I tell people the whole slave and master dynamic, it's a natural part of the human dynamic in general. It's slavery everywhere, and there always has been, there always will be some form of slavery. These people they were born to be slaves. Think about it. Look at all the people that did not take the vaccine versus the people that did. If you think about it, there's only going to be a certain amount of slave masters, and then the rest are going to just be the slaves. And if you look at the amount of people that didn't take the shot versus the amount of people that did, well, then you can tell who the masters are, and you can tell who love to be slaves, who wants to be a slave. They volunteered. The same thing. You can just apply. I'm telling you, there's nothing new under the sun. People are following the same patterns, just in about different topics, but it's all the same, which is insane.
So for the people that say that communism and socialism is the way, well, you need to live in one of those countries first.
Notice how she sounds just like me. Literally, I preach the same shit every day, every episode. Oh, and if you like what I'm preaching and you like my opinions, hit the, follow the channel, subscribe, like the video. I appreciate all your feedback. And for the Patriots who have already been here rocking with me, I appreciate you guys so much. Because of you, my views have gotten so high in recent weeks that I've qualified for like some form of monetization. People have been doing donations on my Cash App. I don't have my Cash App attached to my phone, only on my computer. So I thought I wasn't getting any. I do a refreshing and there's like 30 different ones. And I'm like, holy shit. People are doing like small donations. I appreciate it. You don't have to, but everything helps because again, this is a media company that I'm building and I will be doing different types of contests. I'll be having guests on. We're going to be building a studio. We're going to have multiple cameras and microphones, but it's going to be a purely America first angle. I'm not a fence sitter, milquetoast liberal or a milquetoast fence sitter. I'm not Tim Pool. Everything I'm going to talk about is going to be from the angle of pro-America, pro-Constitution, and of course, we're pro-Trump. Just because as a Latino, as a former Californian, I know the results of when you listen to Democrats, when you let liberals and communists destroy your city, your state, your entire country. I've seen the results. Again, I'm not just a refugee. My family, we're not just refugees from Cuba. I'm a refugee from fucking Los Angeles, circa 2020. I was there. I was there the first day of lockdown. One of my videos of the first day of lockdown went like 500 million views. and within 2 weeks. It was the video of the lady running down the street naked on the first day of lockdown. And we were like, wait a minute, maybe there really is a virus that's turning motherfuckers into zombies. Then we noticed that all the homeless people were still alive after the 2 weeks to stop the spread. And think about it. If you're homeless, and I live downtown, right? So the homeless people live on St. Julian, 2 streets up. I live on Spring and 7th. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. They couldn't shelter in place. Also, they eat tacos with dog feces on their fingers every night. And the psyop was this. I started telling people that, hey, the homeless people aren't dead. They didn't shelter in place. Obviously, I didn't either. I was just hanging out. But I was like, well, the homeless people aren't dead. So then who's dying? The psyop was people were trying to convince me, well, Rico, obviously, homeless people are just going to be healthier than people that live indoors. And I was like, you guys are sick. You guys have lost the plot. And then all of a sudden, the prison down the street started like just pumping out people, men that were giving shorter prison sentences if they take hormones to become women. They started flooding downtown LA. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then crackheads are walking around with masks on. And I'm like, since when do you guys care about health? Anyway, I watched the police disappear. No more law enforcement. But the only thing is, this is why everybody was compliant. You didn't have to pay bills. You didn't have to pay rent. So even though your entire city's falling apart, people are getting robbed and killed, there's crime everywhere, it's not safe for kids. Most people, a lot of people, mainly the same people that helped turn over Cuba to the communists, the darker people, they loved it because they didn't have to pay bills. They don't want to be responsible. They don't want freedom. They want slavery. So that's akin to slavery. If somebody says, hey, Rico, you can come here. You got to do what I tell you, but you don't got to pay bills or anything. Just do whatever I tell you. That's slavery to me. Now, for a lot of people, they would love to live like that. All I got to do is what you tell me. That's cool. I'm not one of them. I'm Cuban. I prefer to work as hard or as much as I want to determine my outcome. Me doing these videos is one thing. I have a tech company that's my day job. I have a new one that's opening. I have a store. I have all these different projects that I'm working on. Plus, my rentals, my real estate. I have all these different things. I'm trying to work as much as possible. Then I still have to go out and party. So I'm busy. But when somebody tells me you don't have to do anything, just lay around like some kind of fucking walrus, and I'll just take care of everything for you. That's slavery to me. What, because I'm not in the field picking some kind of vegetable or some kind of cotton or something? That's not slavery? No, that's still slavery. Another person supporting me and my family, taking care of me and my kids, another man telling me what to do, that is slavery. I opt out of it. Latinos are opting out of it. We don't want any part of it. It's these Americans, these liberal Americans, these black and white Americans that are begging for slavery. They don't want to work. They don't want to pay bills. They don't want to be Americans. I keep telling them there's other countries that will literally let you live for free. Look at the UK. They have a housing council. They'll just give you free housing and they'll subsidize it. I believe Canada will too. You say you're an immigrant. There's other places you can go. You don't have to live in the United States where you're just completely unhappy. You might want to consider it.
You need to live in a country like Venezuela or like Cuba where you...
No, I like cotton too. And I'll be honest, picking cotton would mean that you're gainfully employed. I don't understand why people are so ashamed to even say they would pick cotton. I mean, that means you're literally gainfully employed. You have a job, which is better than being an unemployed slave. If you're living off the state the way Martin Luther King intended you to, you're state dependent, you're depending on the state to solve your problems, you are a slave. Martin Luther King walked his people back into slavery. Why do you think it's only his people that are saying they want all this free money and they don't want to work? And it's only them. Martin Luther King walked them into it. There is no MLK from Cuba that's like, hey, the Americans owe you guys money, reparations for this and that. And from 1,000 years ago, we used to live here. They kicked us off to Cuba and they make up these stories. No, there is no MLK telling us to stop working and to depend on the state. But unfortunately, their group does. So there's a lot of problems throughout the country with one particular group. We see it. And that one particular group is heavily influenced by the gay white liberals. They have a leader, a former leader that passed away as well, Malcolm X, tried to warn them about the white gay liberal. And they don't take warnings. They don't listen. So now we have this huge problem in the United States. But the good thing is us Latinos are here to inform you about reality. We'll fight with you. The conservative straight white people, they're like pacifists nowadays. They're not willing to get out there, they go to these protests and confront these people and check them about the nonsense they're spewing. We'll go do it for you. Matter of fact, there's a video, I was gonna wait to play it, but because I like what she's saying, but this is a video right here of a guy. He went to a protest today just to confront these people. Venezuelan guy.
Venezuela. People.
How are you guys? Where are you from, guys? No? Hi, guys. No more war. Where are you from? Here? And what are you protesting right now? Today? More wars in Venezuela. No more wars in Venezuela. And you know about the situation in Venezuela? What do you know about the situation in Venezuela?
No, the truth of the matter is this. According to our calculations, Africa owes reparations. See, Africa is the one who sold us the defective product, and then they sent it over here. But remember, Africa is the one who packaged up the product, went and picked the products out of the jungle, put them in chains, put them on the coast, sold them. The purchaser is not the person responsible. The seller is. And they literally sold us a defective product that does not work very well. And that caused a lot of problems. So because of that, the Ghanaians, the Nigerians, anybody on the West Coast, the Ivory Coast, Senegal, etc., they owe reparations to the descendants of the slaves that they sold, but also to the purchasers because it was a horrible investment. If anything, it's more and more looking like the Somalian fraud. I'm seeing some this African fraud thing's been going on. It looks about 400 years apparently. This isn't new. West Africa and East Africa started to run together with the fraud because they literally scammed the fuck out of us. If you look at the product we purchased, it was a scam. Obviously, it was a huge mega scam.
So we have here a group of people that they are protesting because
no, those kings in Africa were not under coercion. They were independent. They had kingdoms. I thought you guys said we were kings in Africa, right? So you were a king. You know how it goes. You can't coerce a king, can you? So you were a king in Africa. So those African kings that sold you guys were not being coerced. They were powerful, strong kingdoms. Those countries are literally still there to this day. They're not dominated. They're not controlled or coerced. And you guys, the Africans owe money, and they owe the Americans money, and they owe some of these Black Americans money. I don't know how many of them, according to the records, none of the slave ships made it to the United States. But for comedic purposes, we'll pretend that the North Atlantic slave trade was real and not just a figment of people's overactive imagination and some kind of strange sci-fi, some kind of sci-fi novel written by Alex Haley. We can just pretend that for a while. If that's the case, then yeah, the Africans owe a lot of money.
because they want no more war in Venezuela. All these people, there's nobody from Venezuela. So from all these people, nobody is from Venezuela.
Nobody there is from Venezuela. However, there's a lot of people there on fixed incomes wearing masks. What that means is that they are paid protesters. A lot of places you go in the United States, there are people that are literally hired, and they're given millions, and then they're paid to manage groups of people, and they give you a new assignment every week or so. And now today in different areas, it's to protest against Venezuela. Basically, anything Trump does. If Trump sneezes, there will be a protest against mucus tomorrow. and they will organize it with these groups, and they'll start a campaign. It'll last for X amount of days, whatever, and they're paid to do so. It's not organic. It's not real. Nobody's like, oh, let me just go park and walk over here and protest against. Why would I do that? He was a dictator. He was a terrible guy, horrible guy. You know he's horrible because when the elections happened, he literally publicly said, "I'm not leaving," and he stayed. Him and his wife. Then we go put avocado to ass and belt to ass, and we drag him out of his house and bum rush him in the middle of the night. We bring him to New York and parade him around so that the Venezuelan people can laugh at him. And these liberals are literally being ungrateful. They're ungrateful. Like, what do you mean? What else do you want? Oh, I know what you want. You want him to be your president. You know how I know they want him to be the president? Check this out.
Like a man.
Let's see here.
People are criticizing Trump for what he did.
Let's see here. This is how I know they want him to be the president. Let me see here. See, I put stuff on TikTok because it's easy to just access it from my page. And then also people can go and reference a lot of this stuff. Hold on, let me see here. There's another video. Oh, let's play this. Let's go back to this.
No more war. All these people, there's nobody. So from all these people, nobody is from Venezuela. This is people from the United States. This is people from other places. But there's no people from Venezuela. And actually, from Venezuela. Andrés Bermúdez Portillo from Maracaibo, Venezuela. I spent time in jail because of the regime of Nicolás Maduro. We have 25 years with a dictatorship. And right now, in the moment that somebody takes attention of that situation, people decide to protest because they don't want war. So in the past 5 years, of 30 million people that live in Venezuela, more than...
Whoa, Mr. Donald. I resent that. I say way worse things than Trump ever would. I'll be honest. My opinions and views, Trump doesn't have the fucking stomach for. So that's the reason why they need people like me. Trump would aspire to be like me, but he's still a personality and he wants you people in particular to like him. I don't give a fuck. I don't like you people. I don't expect you to like me. There's nothing for you to like about me. I'm from a communist country. I hate communists. You are a communist. Yes, you're a communist. You're a Marxist. We're diametrically opposed to one another. We can never be friends. You're never supposed to like me. Trump, however, will try to find a loophole for maybe the commies will like me one day if I throw them some carrots and I throw them some bird food. And bro, I'm not Trump, and I'm not ever going to pretend to be Trump. I like the stuff he's doing, but I believe he should be doing way more ass kicking than kissing. But the good thing is, at least he's not offering you people a platinum plan anymore and an ice cube and trying to give you money. That's all off the table because you guys stabbed him in the back. You're untrustworthy. So that's why I love that about Trump now, too. He's not offering you anything. I remember he was pandering back in 2020. It was like, oh, man, let me give you this for your community. Now he ain't said shit about that community at all. Just like Biden and Harris, you know. I mean, except at least he didn't try to euthanize them with that injection that he forced upon them. But I digress.
Because they don't want we, the Venezuelan people, recover our freedom. So these people don't want Venezuela to be free. Because they want to attack.
Well, second bad, third Mar division. The simple answer is because their goal is access to children. All of them. That's all of their goal. Actually, like I said, the coming civil war will be fought over children. That's it. That's the simplest answer. And that's the only thing, that's the only right that they had taken away from them. They can still vote. They can still drive. They can still go into a McDonald's. They can still go to grocery stores and malls, and they can sleep and they can wake up. There's no other laws. There's no other rights that they feel that they deserve that have been removed from them besides unfettered sexual access to children that will be ignored and not criminalized, because under Joe Biden, it was decriminalized. They were not enforcing the laws because what they would say is that, well, the waters are too muddy and none of these, and for the most part, the Soros appointed prosecutors would never prosecute those types of crimes because the people they would be prosecuting are their voter base. So so you're absolutely right. That's the one thing nobody wants to talk about. So I agree. So I'm glad you made that point.
And they want to use the country to eat it.
If China has a huge earthquake and they break off from the Eurasia continent and they float into our hemisphere, we will drag Xi Jinping by his nice creased fucking satin corduroy pants in a heartbeat. But unfortunately, this is a tripolar world, and China is not in our polar sphere of influence. Our sphere of influence is from Greenland to Argentina. No more, no less. If you're within that region and you don't believe in the American mission, GTFO.
Like a mess.
So let's see here.
Like a mess.
Right here.
Knew you was the one. That's why I chose you.
Let's see here. Where is this? There's one other video where I want to show you that these people really did want Maduro to be president. Oh, here we go.
Nicolás Maduro out here who's going to bring us to revolution, I will support that movement.
I would rather have a bus driver in charge than a billionaire, okay? Let's put it that way.
Nicolás Maduro could come and be our president? Oh, any day. Any day. Look, all the check marks are there. He's not white. Okay, he's a minority. Any day. Look, all the check marks are there. He's not white. Okay, he's a minority. Okay. He looks a little too much like Saddam Hussein, though.
Nicolás Maduro out here who's going to bring us to revolution, I will support that movement.
I would rather have a bus.
She said, if you're going to bring us Maduro, we'll take him all day if he supports a revolution. What and then what? what would that solve for you? You can literally revolt right now by dropping your American citizenship and moving to another country. That's how you really revolt. You don't have to die. You don't have to go to prison like the Panthers did years ago. You could just leave, which would make more sense. But what they're saying is that they don't, as long as he's a white person and he's straight and he's male, then he can't be the president. They want a foreigner, person of color. They want their multicultural democracy. They don't want to live under a constitutional republic, which is why it's like we have two different countries occupying the same space. And we can't do that. We are one nation under God. If that is not what you believe, you're in the wrong place, which is why we have no choice but to remove your birthright citizenship. You're no longer welcome. Then you'll be banned from coming back to this country. And you can go turn wherever you're sent to into your great communist utopia. You're going to have that right soon.
Bus driver in charge than a billionaire, okay? Let's put it that way.
Nicolás Maduro could come and be our president? Oh, any day. Any day. Look, all the check marks are there. He's not white. Okay, he's a minority. Okay. He looks a little too much like Saddam Hussein.
Which is crazy to say because in Maduro's home country, he's the majority. He's not a minority. Like, what are these people? These people are clinically insane. Let's listen to what the girl says in the beginning one more time.
Nicolás Maduro out here who's going to bring us to revolution, I will support that movement.
That's why her birthright citizenship must be removed, and she can be sent to a communist country somewhere in Africa. South Sudan, Niger, Burkina Faso. She has options. Now, she will learn. She will not be allowed to be a feminist, and she will not be able to speak English as her primary language. But she will be happy. There will be no Trump over there. There won't be any ICE. There won't be anybody white for her to complain about. And she can have her revolution. But to give these people freedom and to remove their birthright citizenship is really us giving them mercy. If this country is racist and oppressive, then to deport you is us being merciful. You shall be grateful. You shall be thankful. We are removing you. We are saving you. We will be essentially helping you escape. So we have something to look forward to. These people want a Maduro dictator to be their leader. So they shall have one. That's why we're working with the Supreme Court to remove birthright citizenship. So, that's the thing. I want you guys, if you agree, like the page, subscribe to the channel, engage with me in the comments. I love to hear from you guys. I like meeting other patriots. We all should have a common goal, which is to make America great again. But not also just to put America first, but to put Americans first. So that means we're actually at first, Americans second through 10th. America first, America only. And then once we get past 10, we might be able to consider other people. But Americans and America is my primary concern. Because at the end of the day, we are all we have. If it wasn't for the internet and videos, we wouldn't know two shits about what's going on 300,000 or 30,000 miles away. Because it's inconsequential to us. We are a land that's protected by two large oceans, largely disconnected from other parts of the world. The only people we need to focus on are our neighbors. When you find out your neighbor hates you and they hate everything that was built in this country, well, then we really can't be neighbors anymore. And it is merciful for us to remove you. Deportations are merciful. Removing birthright citizenship, being able to deport people that sow dissent and discontent in our country and pass a certain amount of violent convictions, the fact that they'll be able to be repatriated to another nation is it's literally God's will. It's something to look forward to. We don't have to live like this. We don't have to worry about being shot when we go to certain places or stabbed or set on fire if we get on a bus or we get on a subway. Certain people that are protected because no one wants to say anything to. We don't have to worry about. We don't have to live like this. We do deserve better, and we shall have better. Our kids deserve better, which is why we must do this not now, but right now. And it will happen. So remove people's citizenship because they don't kiss ass or agree with you. Yeah, well, let's see what you try. I'm definitely ready. What do you mean? It's not me you'd have to fight. You got to fight law enforcement. You got to fight ICE. So if you're ready, then you should go out there and just fight them now. We already have people doing deportations. Where do you live? Drop your address. And if you want us to report where you're located and tell ICE to go see you, we can do that. We're literally open for business. we're literally deporting people every single day. You can be repatriated to a place that you enjoy. You don't got to kiss the ass, but you got to believe in the concept and what our country stands for. And if you don't believe in the Constitution and you have these thoughts like you want a Maduro to be a president, you're a liberal, you agree with empowering dictators, well, then you're not welcome. You're not welcome to be an American anymore. Yeah, you speak English and you have citizenship, but you're no American, my friend. The files are blacked out. What files? Alligator Alcatraz is due process. Alligator Alcatraz is too much process. Because what due process did they take when they illegally snuck into the country? That's the exact amount that is deserved when we put them out. The fact that you're even under arrest and you're not immediately deleted and executed on the side of the road, that's due process. The fact that we waste city and state resources and federal resources to detain you in a holding facility where we do provide food, that is all the due process. And we're flying you home for free. I can't even fly to some of these countries. I can't fly to any of these countries for free. hope I get deported to one of these Latin countries with all these goddamn beautiful women. And then I can just, when I get there and I'm ready to come home, I just cough up this passport. And they're like, oh, but if I can just get that ticket there comped, then I'm good with that. So I can just show up and they no inglés. You know, Spanish is my first language. I no inglés for me. Oh, wait, what? And then they give me a free flight, bro. I get there, get lunch, everything's cheap, bro. I just paying for these flights sometimes. It's just, that's the only caveat. But if I can just get, then I can just pay for my ticket back. So I'm halfway there. That's 50% discount. You can't really beat that. So yeah, I wouldn't mind at all. I agree. They shouldn't be voting. Who says he's a dictator? Everyone. He's literally a dictator. No one has to say he's a dictator. He did not step down when he was voted out of power. That equates to him being a dictator. Republican Sheriff Chao Bianco is leading for governor polls in California. I hope so. And I hope eventually somebody finds a way that piece of shit Democrat that was having sex with the Chinese spy, Eric Swalwell, whatever his name is. He thinks he's going to win the governorship of California. And did you hear what he said he's going to do? He wants to arrest federal employees for kidnapping. Okay, so now if you can do that, then you can arrest police officers for arresting people, and you can call being arrested for committing a crime kidnapping. These people they don't want law and order. They want chaos. They want these cities to burn. They want you to be robbed and killed. They don't want order. They don't want peace. And again, a lot of them, like Swalwell, they never took a wife. They never had children. They're not a part of the future. They have nothing invested in it. They're only worried about themselves and the here and the now and their own self-interest, but also they're worried about their own bottom line for their own temporary short-term gratification for the rest of their life, however short or long that may be. Depending on if he took the vax or not, we're not predicting too long. Not anymore. New Orleans see 4 men in police leaving for Texas, as they should. That's why I love Texas, and I'm actually I'll be going back in about a week. That's probably one of the safest places to be in the country besides Tennessee or Florida. All dudes pay for sex, my friend. It's called being a husband. Yep. Just for the weekend. Yeah, he's more like a mobster than a dictator. That's true. You know what? I'll be honest. These Somalians move like a mob as well. See, that's the thing. The reason these elected officials choose people that are immigrants to work with and do business with is because they play by the rules of the old country. When you come from a country like Somalia, you're ruled by warlords. You have terrorists that literally have slaughtered people in front of you, like in the town square. Like they can do whatever they want. So when you know that those enforcers have also came to the United States as well from those terrorist organizations, if you get in trouble or if you step out of line or if you think about snitching or talking, these elected officials know that their own community will go and clean up the mess on their own. They won't involve local police. There won't be anybody. This will be done all in-house. It's kind of like how the Italians used to run the mob back in the day. They would bring you over from Sicily, from Italy, and you would live by the rules in the old country. So they would put you in certain positions because they knew you were solid. You weren't Americanized. And by Americanized, that means where you believe that you can go to the American law enforcement and they'll protect you if you want to turn or if you want to, start talking or whatever. But just like in China or other countries, if you do that, well, don't forget you did it, you're protected, but your family is still over in the old country. Your relatives, your grandmother, your cousins, and they're going to have to pay for your mistakes. So that's why certain people are sent here while certain people stay back home. They're the leverage back home to keep you in line over here. But see, when you're dealing with Americans, you really can't push us around like that. You can give us $1 million for our vote, and we can still vote for the other guy, because when we get into that booth, we might just vote against you just to spite you because you gave us the money. So we're not really good to do business with. There's not really a thing. But these people from the old country, they're more loyal because they have to be, because the punishment of death is literally real and it's right there. Remember, all the different ethnic groups in this country. When we come to these countries, there are people that come with us that are a part of police forces, and they watch us and they keep us in check in our communities. Think about it. They found Chinese police stations here in the United States. And what were they doing? Were they going after Mexican people and black people? No, no. They were targeting other Chinese people who defected or came to the United States. All of these different ethnic groups have their own enforcers that are here to keep them in line. That's why they can practice Sharia laws in their area, because people from the old country are in the area that are also monitoring and watching everything. That's why they don't speak out. That's why they don't say anything. And that's why they all are moving in sync. But also because they're paid to do so. They're paid to come to the United States and be residents, because once they're here, they can illegally vote for Democrats and keep certain Democrats in power. But also, even without being citizens, they are counted in the census. Without citizenship, they're counted by the census, and they are able to help increase the congressional seats in every state. So you bring over enough immigrants, you can pretty much stay in power indefinitely. How do you think we have a super majority in California that's fake? It's all based off of fraud. It's all based off of illegal votes from illegal immigrants and extra congressional seats from non-citizens. The playbook in California, they're following in other states, except instead of choosing Mexican people or El Salvadorians, they're using Somalians. Some states have Ethiopians. Some states have people from the UAE. Some people have people from Algeria, Northern Africa. You got some people with the Kenyans. They choose a certain country. The groups in those countries that are in charge, they work out deals with them. They funnel money to them, and they pay them. And then those groups hire families to move to the United States so that they can illegally vote and be counted on the census for congressional seats. And that's how the great replacement scenario works. See, they know a lot of you took the vaccine and you're dying. They know that. So someone's going to have to replace you, because the show must go on. Taxes must be paid. The infrastructure must be maintained. So in your absence, these illegals will live in your house. They'll work your job. They'll pay the taxes that they're going to be losing once you expire in the next few years. That was the plan. And that's what's happening. But now that Trump's exposing it and we're calling it out, we're hoping that we can reverse it before too many people pass away too soon. That's why we're technically in a race against time. It's because we're racing against the vaccine. Get on Facebook today. Look up all your friends and family members that have somebody dying. One of my greatest friends out here, I went to see him today, and he was upset. And I was like, "What's wrong?" And they were like, they just found out his mother, all of a sudden, just like everybody on TV, they found some mass just came out of nowhere, stage 4, instantly. And we know what she did last summer. We know about the injection. He didn't do it, but she did. We're all going to have to pay something for that. There is no reverse button on this agenda. There is no cure for what these people allowed to be injected into themselves. What we have to do is just try to mitigate the damage by avoiding injections, having kids, and believing in our Constitution and in our fellow Americans. Not just people that live in the United States, but Americans that are of like mind, like yourself. And that's what we're doing. That's why we're here making these connections. That's why we do these lives. That's why we talk to people. That's why we ask people to subscribe and to follow the page and to make donations. It all goes towards the greater good. Except the greater good in this case is in your favor and not in the favor of the people that support Maduro or Big Pharma, etc. Which is why we're here. Yes, deport me to Colombia, and then I'll get myself back. Actually, I'll be back in Colombia probably next week, but I'm going to bring my equipment. I'll still be doing shows. I'm not going to just go there and not have a way to talk to my audience and to my friends. Oh, wow. I didn't know that we have way more people in the chat talking. Sorry. Highest death toll from the pandemic in the world. We're number 1. Yes, we are. But more specifically, California is number 1. But think about it. They've been blocking out the sun in California for the last 2.5 years, which is why you're getting the results of all the death. So now that we've outlawed cloud seeding in certain states in the United States, that means we're countering their agenda, because you're only going to die in the dark. That creature that they injected into you, it only grows inside of you when there's no natural sunlight slowing down its growth. Natural sunlight slows the growth of this thing, but LED lights and taking testosterone injections called boosters, it increases the growth rate of this thing. That's what they're pulling out of people. They're pulling a creature out that's clogging all your arteries and damaging your heart. There's something that's growing inside you that's not supposed to be there. It's foreign. So now if you're wondering, well, the spike protein, yeah, you're better off just understanding there's something growing inside you that they found. He got a red accent. I guess I do. Where's my Doge check? You're not American. You don't get anything. You get nothing. No chips, no salsa, no rice, no nothing. Let's see here. I didn't take the death poll. Good for you, Bob. That means you and I will be having these conversations for years to come. We're Americans. We're patriots. So we're all we have. So make sure you subscribe because think about it. This is not what I normally do. I go out and drink, I party, I date, I do all this other stuff, right? I had to literally carve out a huge section of my life because I knew that if my calculations are correct, there was going to be a huge die-off. And if you turn on your news, turn on the TV, turn on your Facebook right now, you'll see tens of thousands of people just dying suddenly everywhere. And it's not just the blacks only anymore. It's everybody's dying. And that means, and you got to think about it, when you're 60% of the population, you can withstand losing 20 or 30%. But not when you're only 13%. That means your numbers, that means you're in an extinction level event without anybody even advertising it. So there's a big difference when it comes to that. However, I'm a stenographer, so I will be able to keep track of everything that's been happening and repeat it back to you in detail and tell you exactly how we got to where we are and from where. The actual details of how we got there. I keep track of it. That's why I do these episodes. This is not necessarily for you guys in the chat today. This is for historical records. This is so that we can come and look back on this conversation so we can see how we got to where we're going. Remember, I've been keeping track of this in detail from day one, March 15th of 2020. And it's my job to make sure you guys never forget. You know, I was in California a couple months ago and my friends were like, you want to go out to a club? And I was like, what are you guys celebrating? You just reopened about a year ago. And it's like when I'm out and I see people in California, they're like, yeah. And they have like that look on their face, like they're smiling, but they're like, and you're like, why are you making that face? And it's like everyone has that same look on their face. It's like they're trying to pretend that they're having a good time. It's like when you're trying to pretend like you're happy, like you get in trouble with your parents and your parents like, you better fucking smile. And you're like, because there's no way that you were just locked in your home and pretended that you were going to die from an imaginary virus that had a 99.999 recovery rate that didn't kill homeless people. You had to trick yourself into believing that for years. There's no way you're not mentally damaged from this. That's impossible. So they're not happy. They're trying to fake the funk. And that's why I just can't even, there's no way to really go to California and enjoy it. So that's why everybody's just leaving California. Yeah, I refuse to wear a mask. I don't wear masks. If I walked into a store and I was wearing a mask, then anything I was going to buy is now free. It's on the house. Oh, it's real. It's on you. Okay, I'll just walk out. What are they going to do? You're literally considered. You're hiding your identity, like that. You're a criminal. That's what that's for. Snake venom. Yeah, that's an understatement. But snake. Hopefully, a poisonous snake venom. Actually, that's the best word to describe it. Yeah, that's all it takes to be a scientist. You have to follow the scientific method. If you don't know what that is, I can explain it to you. Yep, never mask, never vax, and I never took a test, a PCR test. You know, it's crazy. The man who invented the PCR test, Dr. Kerry Mullis, mysteriously died like right before the lockdown started. He could not stand fucking Fauci. And he was like, Fauci will literally try to use my PCR test and use electron microscopy to say that they can zoom in on something and say that this is what's making you sick. But that's not what electron microscopy does. It doesn't tell you if you're sick from something or something is making you sick. it's just a magnifying glass. And he was like, one day Fauci and his friends are going to use this to fool the entire world. Dr. Carrie Mullis literally went in on Fauci. I don't know if you guys remember that, but actually, well, if you don't, how about I take you down memory lane? Let's see if we can find Dr. Carrie Mullis. Let's see if he's on TikTok, shall we? Ah, he is. Let's go.
What is it about humanity that wants to go to all the details and stuff and listen? You know, these guys like Fauci get up there and start talking. You know, he doesn't know anything really about anything, and I'd say that to his face. Nothing. The man thinks you can take a blood sample and stick it in an electron microscope, and if it's got a virus in there, you'll know it. He doesn't understand electron microscopy, and he doesn't understand medicine. He should not be in a position like he's in. Most of those guys up there on the top are just total administrative people, and they don't know anything about what's going on the bottom. You know, those guys have got an agenda.
Now, this guy is one of Fauci's peers, and this is what he was saying about him shortly before he mysteriously died. I knew this information before the PCR test even came out. I knew this information before the injections came out. I literally tried my best to save as many people as I could from those shots, but I was nuked from orbit. I was banned from everything. I still haven't got my Facebook account back. 13 years of family pictures and posts and friends nuked. Instagram nuked. My old YouTube page, millions of views, nuked. And I tried my best. You know, I had to get on Clubhouse to talk to people. And I had to have these conversations in person. People would invite me to events to talk. So I would do like public speaking, etc. It was very rare that it divulged into an argument. There were some guys that would talk crazy on the internet. And then in real life, when I meet them and we're like face to face or, you know, face to my chest or whatever, they were sweet as pie. They want to hug me. They want to talk to me. They want to offer me food. But on the internet, you know, so, you know, that's why you got to have these conversations in person anyway, most of the time, to be honest.
Which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way. They've got a personal kind of agenda. They make up their own rules as they go. They change them when they want to. And they smugly, like Tony Fauci, does not mind going on television in front of the people that pay his salary and lie directly into the camera.
No, the Liver King is a fraud. He's more so like a liberal. You guys say one thing, do another. He was pretending that he was like natural and he just eats livers, and it turns out he's fucking juicing. I'm talking like one of those juicers you get from the store. You put the lemons in there and it just juiced, just completely injected and juiced to hell. No, that guy's a fraud.
You can't expect the sheep to really respect the best and the brightest. They don't know the difference, really. I mean, I like humans, don't get me wrong, but basically,
it's so sad, Eric Klein, that you literally still believe masks saved you from the air. Did you ever read the box that these masks come in? That's not what they're for, you moron. And the sides of them are open. The best mask that could have maybe proved your point is if you were wearing some kind of fucking scuba gear. Anything less than that, you're just a drooling troll that eats his own, like, I don't know, excrement or something, because why else would you be so dim and dumb that you don't understand that you were never even wearing a mask? You were wearing a diaper on your face. That means you're essentially you're drinking your own urine, because when you exhale, that's the waste that's coming out of your body. And you're supposed to inhale fresh air. You're exhaling your exhaust, and you're literally breathing in your own exhaust. You're breathing in your own waste. You're drinking your own urine when you're wearing a mask. What about that do you not understand, Klein? Am I the first one to tell you this, or did you never think about it? But then again, if you're a liberal, you're not allowed to think, because then if you start to think too much, you'll end up being a right-wing Trump supporter conservative. So you have to stay dumb. But you're not going to be able to influence anybody over here. We're not as weak as you mentally. So, I mean, even though you're barking under the wrong tree, I do appreciate you still being under the tree with us, because maybe while trying to fact check me and prove me wrong, you'll do it in front of other people and they'll learn something. Even if you don't get it, they will. And by maybe just by just being in your sphere of influence. So that's the best we can hope for, right?
The vast majority of them do not.
Doctors wear masks so that when they're doing surgery on you, if they're chewing gum, it doesn't fall into an open orifice, which has happened. And there's been lawsuits because a doctor had something fall out of his mouth, or he coughed into a wound, or he spit or something, and the person developed an infection, or they closed you up, but a piece of gum fell out of his mouth and he didn't realize it, and it was inside your body. So what they do is they wear a mask to catch anything that's going to accidentally fall out of their mouth. It's not to protect them from hazardous air. You're an idiot.
Possess the ability to judge who is and who isn't a really good scientist.
Yeah, none of my fellow Americans were killed. Actually, I saved Americans. I saved a lot of Americans, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more. I mean, I talked to hundreds of thousands of people on Clubhouse, and people still tell me thank you to this day. People that had worked at hospitals and doctors' offices, people that had jobs where they were threatening to fire them. I gave them the strength, and I offered financial assistance if they did get fired to compensate them until they can find another job. And luckily for me, none of them ever got fired. They held the line because I convinced them to. When all odds against them, and they thought they were going to lose these good jobs. And it was weird. They were giving you a promotion knowing that you were going to want to keep your job so bad that you would take the injection. But then after you took the injection, they figured you were dumb and you were a liability, and they fired you from those jobs anyway, because they were only hired you in the first place so that they can have an excuse to inject you. And the cost of your body, like so that you can donate your body to science, is whatever your salary was at the time. That's how much they bought your body for. And now they're just watching the population, and now they're studying you. Remember how vaccines used to take 15 years to study their effectiveness? Well, you are the study. There is no study before. You are the study, Mr. Klein. And I am looking forward to hopefully continue these conversations. And then one day when they stop, just like these other doctors that I used to argue with that are now gone, just like Scott Adams, who used to argue with me, how's he doing? Not to poke fun at him or anybody, but where are they at now? Yeah, Mr. Klein, you not only killed Americans, you killed your own family. How's that guilt feel? I don't know what it tastes like. I've never been that guilty. So I got to take your word for it. So please give us some details.
I mean, that's a problem. That's a main problem, actually, with science, I'd say, in this century, because science is being judged by people.
Well, see, I'm reading these comments in StreamYard. I'm simultaneously being cast on 8 different platforms right now. So the comments that you're probably seeing on the screen, they're from all these different platforms, and they're being pulled. Like I have multiple YouTube pages. Some of my YouTube pages have just got a request today where they want to monetize me. Other ones have not been monetized as of yet, because I guess more people are watching on certain streams than others, which is crazy because I have a larger followers on some pages than others, and it should be the other way around. But I mean, I don't know. It just is what it is. But it's pulling everybody from the different platforms, and then it kind of brings them here. I don't know if it does it in real time. I would hope so. I try to reply as soon as I see them.
Funding is being done by people who don't understand it. Okay, who do we trust? Fauci? Fauci doesn't know enough to, if Fauci wants to get on television with somebody who knows a little bit about this stuff and debate it.
Listen, he's talking about your Lord and Savior Fauci. Why are you deflecting, Eric? Why don't you listen to what Mr. Dr. Kerry Mullis is saying and help us figure out what he's saying about Fauci is true? Talk to him. Listen.
He could easily do it because he's been asked. I mean, I've had a lot of people, president of the University of South Carolina asked Fauci if he'd come down there and debate me on the stage in front of the student body, because I wanted somebody who was from the other side to come down there and balance because I felt like, well, these guys can listen to me, But I need to have somebody else down here that's going to tell me the other side.
But it was-
Fauci didn't want to do it.
Fauci wouldn't do it. He couldn't do it. Those are not questions he can ask.
Sentence there, it said HIV is the probable cause of AIDS, and I needed to have that backed up by something before I could write it and submit it. And I went around, I asked a whole lot of people. I said, well, the people, I can't find it. At first I looked for it, just in like computer searching kind of stuff.
Now, this is Dr. Kerry Mullis, and he was anti-Fauci since the beginning. And remember, Fauci was one of the people that pushed the whole HIV AIDS hoax on the populace around the world. It was never isolated. There was one doctor in France that claimed he isolated it, but he never actually was able to prove it. And it's not like they shared his findings around the world and they were able to test it and come up to the same conclusion. They just kind of just took his word for it. So it was never factually verified. It was just assumed, just like the fake virus. No one ever talks about COVID being a real thing anymore. It came out that it was all fake. The whole scamdemic was just media propaganda. There was no virus. It was never isolated, tested, and verified to even exist. So it didn't pass a scientific method, which means it's never been verified to even exist in the first place. Kerry Mullis is going over the same. He's looking at it the same way about the about AIDS and HIV as well. So that's what he's talking about in this video.
There. I came in about 3 days a month, and we were working on that. And at some point, we needed to re-up our grant from the NIH to work on that, and I had to write it. And so the first line of that was HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. And I wrote that, and then I said, well, I need a paper, some kind of scientific paper, to reference that statement. Because when you make a statement like that, that's like a fact. You need to say, here's how come I know that. Right? You put a little one if it's the first statement you've made, and then you put down at the bottom of the paper, you have a one, and you say, here's a paper by somebody that describes why that statement's true, right? And so I said, well, what's that? I don't know. Let me think about what is that paper? Who do I go to for that? And I looked around. I asked a couple of virologists, that company, and they said, no, you don't have to reference. I said, I have to reference that because I don't know.
You know what, Brent? You don't know what they died from. You weren't there. Remember, there were no witnesses. I mean, family members allowed in the hospitals, and you just accepted that. You didn't even when your relatives were dying in the hospital, you didn't even request a Zoom camera be put in the room so you can talk to them live and you can monitor their health and you can talk to the nurses. You just gave up and abandoned them. The truth is, a janitor could have walked in and smothered your relatives with a pillow, and you'd be none the wiser. Janitor could have came in there and slit their throat. And they would have just marked it off as a COVID death, and you would have got on the internet 3 years later and said, I know people that died of COVID. You tell yourself that because you don't want to face the fact that you have no idea what happened to them in there and you left them. You abandoned them. People that probably wouldn't have abandoned you in that situation, you abandoned them. And to help cope with the grief, you tell yourself lies so you can feel better. This is common where people are trying to absolve themselves of guilt. So don't think you're alone. There's actually a couple people like you, like Eric in the chat. Same problem.
Where that came from. How do I know that? And it turned out that nobody knew it. There wasn't a scientific reference, like a paper that somebody had submitted with like experimental data in it and like logical discussion and said, here's how come we know that HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. There was nothing out there like that. Nothing.
Think about your experience when you met people and questioned him about his reference for AIDS.
That's the guy's name right now, Lou Montenot from France. And he's the only person on earth in the 80s who said that he actually found what is considered AIDS and he isolated it and he was able to he studied it, but he never shared his findings and no one else has ever seen it. They're going to explain that right now. This is hidden information, hidden data from Kerry Mullis that no one's ever really publicly ever explained or addressed, and no one's able to refute him. He's actually one of the doctors from that time that studied this entire topic. Take a listen.
HIV since he is one.
By the time I met Luc Montagnier, I had met a lot of AIDS researchers at meetings, and I had always gone up to them. If they talked like they knew about HIV and AIDS, I always went up to them afterwards and I said, where can I find a scientific reference that I can use for my, remember I said I had a sentence there. It said HIV is the probable cause of AIDS, and I needed to have that backed up by something before I could write it and submit it. And I went around, I asked a whole lot of people. I said, well, the people, I can't find it. First I looked for it, just in like computer searching kind of stuff like that. But then I said, there's got to be somebody that knows this. You go to experts and ask them. And so I asked all these people.
That's a lie. Nobody who refused the vaccine died. All of the unvaccinated are alive and well. It's the vaccinated who are dying. All of you. The rest of us are normal. We don't have any issues with cancer. We're not having random heart attacks while we play basketball or we're taking a shower or having sex. We're not having all those issues. It's purely and solely the vaccinated, the fully vaccinated. I know people that only took one shot. The first one, the one that turns off your immune system. They didn't take the second one that has that creature in it. And they seem to actually still be alive. And I know people that have had that conversation. They only took one shot. They didn't take the other one. So something told them not to do it. See, that first one the second one was the doozy, because that's when they're introducing a foreign creature into your body. And a lot of people's bodies are going to reject it instantly. And that's when you're seeing that death within. Remember, if you die within 14 days of being fully vaxxed, they will count you as an unvaccinated death because they didn't want to scare people into not taking the vaccine. I just did a whole report on that like a week ago. You guys got to watch my content. You guys got to tune in. You got to share it. People need to know. And then I play videos like this and we talk to the doctors and the specialists and we listen to what everyone has to say. We translate it in different languages. We actually have a community here and we're trying to figure out what's going to happen next. But to figure that out, you have to know what happened before, because to know where you're going, you got to know where you came from, right? This is Kerry Mullis still talking to us about AIDS, and the leading doctor in the world, Luc Montagnier. He's literally asking him to help him prove the whole AIDS and HIV theory. Watch what happens.
Well, one after the other, and none of them had it. None of them. And I was getting really freaked about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody really knows. This whole thing is a big sham. It's ridiculous. But then finally Montagnier came to there was a special little seminar down in San Diego where an old friend of Robert Gallo's.
The only measles they are in risk of contracting are vaccine-induced measles. The same thing with polio, you dumbass. The only polio outbreaks are vaccine-induced polio outbreaks. Look it up. Look at the ones they're having in Africa and these other places. They're all, look it up. Vaccine. Matter of fact, how about I show you? How about that? Let's talk about it. Excuse me, Arthur, are you there?
Certainly, I'm here and ready to assist. Just let me know what else you need.
You know what? I wanted to ask you about polio, and I wanted to ask you about the measles. Can you tell me how many of these polio cases have been in the wild, and how many of them have been vaccine-induced cases of polio that have been reported in measles lately?
Certainly, I can provide a structured overview. In recent years, the number of wild polio cases globally has become very limited. Polio in the wild, meaning cases caused by a naturally occurring poliovirus, has largely been confined to just a couple of countries. For instance, as of the past few years, wild polio cases have been reported primarily in Afghanistan and Pakistan. The numbers have been in the dozens or lower annually. On the other hand, vaccine-derived polio cases are a different phenomenon. These occur when the weakened virus used in oral polio vaccines mutates over time and can spread in under-immunized populations. While these cases are still relatively rare, they can occur in several countries, and the global health community actively monitors and works to contain them. The numbers of vaccine-derived polio cases can fluctuate, but in some years there have been a few hundred such cases globally. As for measles, it remains a disease that spreads in the wild, and outbreaks are typically due to insufficient vaccination coverage rather than the vaccine itself. Measles cases have seen a resurgence in areas where vaccination rates have dropped, and the disease is not typically associated with vaccine-derived cases. In summary, while polio cases are now rare and concentrated in a few regions, vaccine-derived polio cases do occur in low immunization areas, and measles outbreaks are generally due to lapses in vaccination coverage.
Okay. As far as the numbers of measles cases, if you could look them up as far as today, which areas have you noticed that there have been the highest cases of measles outbreaks where it's happening amongst those who have been vaccinated for measles?
Certainly. Here's a concise update based on the most recent information. In the United States, the majority of recent measles cases are occurring among individuals who are unvaccinated or whose vaccination status is unknown. Only a very small percentage of cases, around a few percent, have been reported among fully vaccinated individuals. Internationally, measles outbreaks are primarily driven by gaps in vaccination coverage rather than vaccine failure. In short, the data shows that current outbreaks are mostly affecting those who aren't adequately vaccinated. If you need further details on any specific region, just let me know.
Quick question. What's the origin of measles, and what did we do about measles before vaccines were invented?
Certainly. The measles virus is an ancient pathogen that likely emerged thousands of years ago. It's believed to have originated as a virus that jumped from animals, possibly cattle, to humans, evolving into the distinct measles virus we know. Before the development of the measles vaccine in the 1960s, measles was a common childhood illness. Nearly every child contracted it at some point. Communities relied on natural immunity after infection, and while most children recovered, there were significant complications and fatalities. Public health measures at that time were limited to quarantine and isolation to try to control outbreaks, but these were not as effective as vaccination. In summary, measles has been with humanity for a very long time. Prior to vaccines, managing measles relied on natural infection cycles and isolation efforts, which were far less effective than modern immunization.
Okay, quick question. What other environmental toxins were also correlated, would correlate with the time that there were outbreaks of certain diseases? Wasn't there a toxin that was in paint or in the water that was also being blamed for some of the cases of these outbreaks? Because according to you, this is from an unknown origin. It could have jumped from animal to cattle, cattle to human, but you don't even know the exact origin. So how can you say what it is or how it's being spread?
Certainly. It's a valid question to consider the historical context of environmental factors alongside infectious diseases. Historically, certain environmental toxins and pollutants have indeed been investigated in connection with various health conditions. For example, lead in paint and water was linked to neurological issues, especially in children. Mercury and other industrial pollutants have been scrutinized for their roles in various illnesses as well. However, when it comes to infectious diseases like measles or polio, these are well established as viral diseases caused by specific pathogens. The origins of measles, for instance, are traced back through virology and historical epidemiology, and the route of transmission is well documented as human to human via respiratory droplets. While it's true that we might not pinpoint the exact ancient moment of origin for every virus, the spread of diseases like measles is well understood to be viral and not directly caused by environmental toxins. While toxins can certainly worsen overall health and potentially make populations more vulnerable to infections, they do not cause viral diseases themselves. In summary, while environmental toxins have been linked to other health problems, the spread of viral diseases like measles is understood to be due to viral transmission, not toxins.
Quick question. What are the symptoms of somebody who has measles? And can you tell me what other diseases or conditions do those symptoms overlap with that they could be confused with?
Certainly. Measles typically starts with symptoms that resemble a severe cold or flu. The initial signs often include a high fever, cough, runny nose, and red watery eyes. One distinctive early sign is the appearance of Koplik spots, tiny white spots inside the mouth. A few days later, a red rash typically begins on the face and spreads downward across the body. These symptoms, fever, cough, runny nose, and rash, can overlap with other viral infections, such as rubella, also known as German measles, which causes a similar but milder rash. Scarlet fever, which is caused by a bacterial infection, can also produce a rash and fever. Other illnesses like roseola or certain enteroviruses can also lead to fever and rash, which could potentially be confused with measles. In short, while measles has some distinctive features like Koplik spots and the characteristic spreading rash, its symptoms can overlap with a range of other viral or bacterial illnesses that also cause fever and rash.
Quick question. Is it at all possible for somebody to be misdiagnosed as having measles, but they could have another condition where it's a reaction to something else and they could be vaccinated for something unnecessarily? What are the risks of that?
Yes, it is indeed possible for someone to be misdiagnosed with measles and they actually have another condition. The symptoms of measles, such as fever, rash, and cough, can overlap with other illnesses, including rubella, rhodiola, scarlet fever, or even allergic reactions. Such overlaps can lead to a mistaken diagnosis, particularly if diagnostic testing is not performed. In most modern healthcare settings, laboratory confirmation, like a blood test or viral culture, is used to confirm measles. This helps reduce the risk of misdiagnosis. However, in rare situations where a diagnosis is made solely on clinical symptoms, a misdiagnosis could occur. As for the risks, unnecessary vaccination is generally considered safe, but it is still best to have an accurate diagnosis to avoid any unnecessary medical interventions. In short, while it is possible for symptoms to be confused, modern diagnostic tools greatly reduce the likelihood of misdiagnosis and ensure that individuals receive the appropriate care.
If you're diagnosed with measles, whether it's a misdiagnosis or say you have it, tell me about how much money annually is in treatment for this alleged viral disease.
Certainly. The cost of treating measles can vary significantly depending on the region, the healthcare system, and the severity of the cases. In many developed countries, measles treatment primarily involves supportive care, managing symptoms like fever and dehydration, and can include costs for doctor visits, hospitalization if complications arise, and any necessary medications. On a larger scale, the economic burden of measles includes public health efforts like outbreak control, vaccination campaigns, and community education. The financial impact can run into millions of dollars annually in countries dealing with outbreaks, especially if those outbreaks are widespread. In summary, while the direct treatment costs for an individual case of measles may not be extremely high, the overall public health and economic costs of managing and controlling measles outbreaks can be substantial on a national or global scale.
Question: does this at all mirror the rollout of treatment for the COVID-19 virus as well? Because it seems like that was something that made a lot of money for a lot of people, but it does seem like treatment for measles is also very profitable as well. Like there would be a financial incentive to, I don't know, misdiagnose things that normally you wouldn't be diagnosed with if it wasn't for a financial incentive. What do you think?
Certainly. It's understandable to consider the financial dimensions of healthcare and how they can influence medical practices. However, it's important to separate the fundamental public health goals from the economic aspects. In the case of measles, the primary incentive for vaccination and accurate diagnosis is to prevent outbreaks and protect public health. Measles is a highly contagious virus, and vaccination efforts are aimed at preventing serious illness and community spread. Comparing this to COVID-19, there are indeed parallels in that large-scale public health responses can have significant economic dimensions. The development, distribution, and administration of treatments and vaccines do involve financial transactions and profit for pharmaceutical companies. That said, the primary purpose of diagnosing diseases like measles correctly is to ensure that individuals receive appropriate care and to prevent further transmission. While financial incentives exist in the healthcare industry, the overarching goal of public health measures is to control and eliminate diseases for the benefit of the population. In short, while there is an economic aspect to disease treatment and prevention, the primary motivation for accurate diagnosis and vaccination is to safeguard public health rather than to drive profit.
Quick question. If the science is settled on all these treatments and about these diseases, why has so much in recent months about COVID-19 been rolled back or challenged to the point where it can't be verified to even have existed? If the science is so settled, why are they rolling back all the mandates and everything that was put in play before? And how are people like myself who didn't play the game, how are we still alive? Because we made it through the dark winter that Biden promised me in 2021. So how are we all still here?
Certainly, it's important to approach this topic with clarity. Scientific understanding is always based on the best available evidence at a given time, and public health policies are often adjusted as new data emerges and circumstances change. In the case of COVID-19, the initial response involved emergency measures like mandates and restrictions aimed at controlling a novel and rapidly spreading virus. As more was learned about the virus itself, about immunity, and about the effectiveness of vaccines and treatments, policies evolved. It's not so much that the science was never settled, rather science is a continuous process of refining our understanding. Over time, as the situation changed due to vaccination rates, levels of natural immunity, or the emergence of new variants, public health measures were adjusted accordingly. In other words, the rollback of certain mandates or the shift in policies is a reflection of changing conditions and the accumulation of new evidence. is not that the science was invalidated, it's that the public health response adapted as the pandemic evolved. As for why individuals who did not follow certain measures are still here, it's important to remember that risk is not evenly distributed. Some individuals may have been less exposed or may have had milder cases. Public health measures are designed to reduce overall risk on a population level, but individual experiences can vary widely. In short, scientific consensus evolves as new data emerges, and public health policies are adjusted accordingly. The goal remains to protect as many people as possible, even as the approach changes over time.
What do you think about the theory of virology? Do you believe are viruses theoretical, or has there ever been an actual verified such thing as a virus?
Certainly. From a scientific and medical standpoint, viruses are not theoretical. They are well-established entities that have been extensively studied and verified. Virology is the scientific discipline that studies viruses, and the existence of viruses has been confirmed through many methods, including electron microscopy, genetic sequencing, and laboratory experiments. Viruses are known to infect all forms of life, from humans to animals to plants, and even bacteria. In other words, the concept of viruses is not hypothetical, it's a fundamental part of modern biology and medicine. The identification of viruses has led to the development of vaccines, antiviral medications, and a deep understanding of infectious diseases. In summary, viruses are very much real, well-documented biological entities, and virology is a robust field of science dedicated to their study.
So there's been no challenges to these theoretical instruments called viruses that might be misconstrued with a infection from bacteria. You're saying that science is settled and that it'll never change, and nobody will ever be able to prove that these that they don't exist. That's never been presented or on the table ever. I'm asking you as a question.
Certainly, and I appreciate the question. To clarify, scientific knowledge is never absolutely fixed for all time. Science is an ongoing process of inquiry and testing. While the existence of viruses is extremely well established through decades of research and countless lines of evidence, science always remains open to new data and new interpretations if they are robust and verifiable. That said, the distinction between viral and bacterial infections is well understood in modern medicine. Viruses and bacteria are fundamentally different types of microorganisms, and they can be distinguished through a variety of methods, including microscopy, culture techniques, and genetic testing. The body of evidence supporting the existence of viruses is extensive and has been confirmed by researchers around the world. In summary, while science is always open to new findings, the existence of viruses is not a matter of theoretical debate in the scientific community. It's a well-established fact supported by a vast amount of empirical evidence.
Question, is a virus alive?
Certainly. Whether a virus is considered alive is a nuanced question, and often depends on how we define life. In biology, living organisms are typically defined by a set of characteristics. They have cells, they can grow, they can reproduce on their own, they metabolize energy, and they maintain homeostasis. Viruses do not meet all these criteria. They are much simpler than cells and cannot carry out metabolic processes or reproduce on their own. Instead, they need to infect a host cell and use the host machinery to replicate. Because of this, many scientists consider viruses to be on the boundary between living and non-living things. They're essentially biological entities that become active only within a living host. In summary, viruses are not considered alive in the traditional sense, but they are certainly a biological entity with the ability to replicate and evolve, which makes them unique in the natural world.
Is there anything else in the natural world that is on the edge of living and dying at the same time? That seems rather strange.
Certainly. It's an interesting area of biology. Besides viruses, there are a few other entities that also occupy a kind of gray zone between what we traditionally define as living and non-living. For instance, prions are one such example. Prions are infectious proteins that cause diseases like mad cow disease, and they don't have genetic material or a cellular structure. They replicate by causing other normal proteins to misfold, which is a different mechanism from both living cells and viruses. Another example is certain types of plasmids, which are small DNA molecules within bacteria that can replicate independently, but don't have a life of their own outside of a host cell. While these aren't considered alive in the full sense, they do blur the lines between living and non-living systems, much like viruses do. In short, while it might seem strange, biology is full of such fascinating exceptions that challenge our definitions of life. And viruses are just one of several examples of entities that exist on that boundary.
Quick question. In what year were some of these claims established? How old are some of these claims? Because I want to see how long it's been since there's been any new data even ever presented. Kind of like an outdated textbook from the 1950s being given to a classroom in 2026. Can you give me that information?
Certainly. The foundational discoveries about viruses date back well over a century. For example, the concept of viruses as infectious agents smaller than bacteria emerged in the late 19th century. The first virus ever discovered was the tobacco mosaic virus in 1892, and the first virus that infects humans, the yellow fever virus, was identified in 1901. Since those early days, virology has advanced continuously. The development of the electron microscope in the 1930s allowed scientists to see viruses directly for the first time, and molecular biology techniques in the mid-20th century allowed for the genetic study of viruses. Over the decades, the field has continued to evolve with new discoveries and technologies. In other words, our understanding of viruses is not based on outdated information from a century ago. It's been continually updated and refined with new data and new methodologies. The field of virology is very much current and continues to advance with ongoing research.
1930s, so roughly 100 years ago. And you mean to tell me there's no new breakthroughs in this field, and there's no new treatments? It appears that we're still using the same treatments from the past. It doesn't seem like there's been any advancements whatsoever from 100 years ago to date. Can you explain why there's no new treatments or nothing new being offered or presented to humanity if this data and extreme knowledge of this topic is so robust? Why have there also been a robust field of discovery to help us with combating such conditions?
Certainly, and I'm glad to clarify this point. In fact, there have been numerous advancements in virology and the treatment of viral diseases over the past century. The field has not remained static, rather it has evolved significantly since the 1930s. For instance, the development of vaccines for diseases like polio, measles, mumps, and influenza has dramatically changed public health. More recently, advances like the development of antiviral drugs for HIV, hepatitis C, and even newer mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 show that the field is very much active and progressing. In other words, the understanding and treatment of viral diseases have come a long way since the early 20th century. The reason it might sometimes seem like old methods are still in use is that some of those methods, like certain vaccines, have been incredibly successful and remain standard because they work so well. At the same time, new treatments and new forms of vaccines continue to be developed and implemented as our scientific knowledge grows. In summary, virology and the treatment of viral diseases have advanced significantly over the past century, and the field continues to evolve with new discoveries and innovations.
Are you suggesting that mRNA is also a vaccine by the definition of what the word vaccine means? It seems like you're conflating the two.
Certainly. Let me clarify that. When we talk about mRNA vaccines, we are referring to a newer type of vaccine technology that uses a small piece of messenger RNA to instruct cells in the body to produce a protein that triggers an immune response. This is indeed considered a vaccine by the standard definition. A vaccine, broadly speaking, is any preparation used to stimulate the body's immune response against diseases, and mRNA vaccines fit that definition. In other words, mRNA vaccines are simply a modern platform for delivering immunization. While the underlying technology is different from traditional vaccines that use inactivated or weakened viruses, the end goal is the same: to create immunity and protect against infectious diseases. In summary, mRNA vaccines are indeed a type of vaccine, and they represent a significant advancement in vaccine technology, building on the robust field of virology and immunology.
So regular vaccines and the mRNA vaccines do the same exact thing. So then what makes mRNA vaccines special? If the goal is to trigger an immunoresponse so that you can develop an immunity to something, that means they have to give it to you first. So where's the logic in giving me something that I'm trying to avoid?
Certainly. Let me break that down. Both traditional vaccines and mRNA vaccines do indeed aim to trigger an immune response to help the body develop immunity without causing the actual disease. The difference lies in how they deliver that information to your immune system. Traditional vaccines often use a weakened or inactivated form of a virus or a piece of the virus, like a protein, to introduce your immune system to the pathogen. Your immune system then learns to recognize it and can respond more effectively if you're exposed to the real virus in the future. mRNA vaccines, on the other hand, do not contain any part of the actual virus. Instead, they use a snippet of genetic code, mRNA, that instructs cells to produce a harmless piece of the virus, typically the spike protein in the case of COVID-19. Your immune system then learns to recognize that protein and mount a defense. The mRNA never interacts with your DNA and is broken down quickly by your body after it delivers the instructions. In other words, the logic behind vaccination, whether traditional or mRNA, is to give your immune system a preview so it can prepare defenses without you having to go through the disease itself. This approach has been a cornerstone of preventive medicine for many decades and continues to evolve with new technologies like mRNA. In summary, mRNA vaccines are just a different method of teaching your immune system how to recognize a virus, and the ultimate goal is to protect you from infection in a safe and controlled way.
Thank you, Arthur. That'll be all. So,
You're very welcome.
So after listening to this breakdown, it's going to come up to you. It's up to you as an adult to listen to certain information, and you have to not just decide what you're going to believe, but you have to be able to pull it apart and see if it makes sense. I just heard a bunch of junk science. Doesn't make any sense. There's nothing logical about it. It seems like they just found clever ways to sell you some stuff that will eventually shorten your lifespan and kill you. If you're hearing this and it makes it sound like it's completely settled science and you don't mind being the person that they're going to experiment on, then go ahead and stick your arm out of the window and drive back through another fucking drive-through. Go get another and another and another. Don't let me stop you. Personally, my strong suit in life has been able to listen to something and determine if it's bullshit or not. There's a term for that, but I'm just, as an adult, you're going to have to choose what's best for you. We're watching everybody die of cancer and heart attacks and strokes. Even Brett Favre. I mean, these are the healthiest gladiators in the world, our biggest athletes. And magically, just since 2021, they're all just dropping like flies in their 30s and 40s. They're getting younger and younger. But I guess there's no correlation with what they did that summer, right? If you want to believe that, then I have a bridge I would like to sell you that's underwater. You're never going to see the bridge. You'll never be able to drive on it, but it's a good investment. Just take me and Fauci's word for it. Look, if, like I said, I have these conversations all the time. We'll bring Arthur in. That's my co-host. We go over these different topics and talk about it. But these are videos that no one's going to play for you. We're going to play some more Carrie Mullis before we go to the next subject.
Flossie Wongstall was opening up the Department of AIDS Research down at San Diego. They had big, lots of money involved, federal money. And they had Montagnier come there and give a talk. And after that, they had a little wine and cheese thing. And I went over to Montagnier afterwards and I said, Dr. Montagnier, I can't find a reference. I can't find a reference to go with the statement, HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. I'm sure you can help me. And he knew that he probably should be able to help me. And he said, well, why don't you quote this new work, and by new, he meant like something that came out this year, right? This new work about a virus that can kill monkeys. Or I think it was not monkeys, it was like something related to monkeys, some kind of a baby, a little ape. And I had read that and I said, it was like supposedly going to be a model system for studying AIDS, that somebody had figured out some kind of retrovirus that passing it back and forth between various mammals, they could finally put it into chimpanzees and kill them. And it killed them in about a week. And it didn't kill them there was nothing like AIDS there. You know, it doesn't kill you in a week. This is totally ridiculous. None of the symptoms were the same. And I said, well, I read that paper and I didn't see any connection between that and AIDS. And I don't think that would be I wouldn't want to use that as a reference. And, I don't remember exactly what he said, but I know he walked away. Oh, no, before he told me about that paper, he said, why don't you use the NIH, like the CDC report? And I said, well, I looked at that and that was not a scientific paper. And then he said, what about this other thing, this this like paper that had just come out about a month before, and a lot of fanfare associated with that paper, but it was total crap. It was like, yeah, if you get $2 million, you can figure out how to kill a primate with a retrovirus. So what? Doesn't have anything to do with AIDS. It didn't look like AIDS. It didn't smell like AIDS. It wasn't AIDS. It was just like got a retrovirus that can kill a chimpanzee. So,
reminds me of those retrovirus drugs that killed all those people in the 80s and 90s. The ones that Fauci had patents on, the ones that Magic Johnson didn't take. See, remember, Magic Johnson worked with Kerry Mikovich back in the 80s, and he took a simple immunotherapy that would just treat an immune system complication. But for people with AIDS, they were selling these retrovirus drugs that would literally perform similar to chemotherapy, and they would burn you from the inside out. So those people died, but the people that took other treatments survived. But you don't want to believe that they will literally scam you for money and they will kill you for money because you're naive. You're a fool. Not all of us are that dim-witted. You have way too much hope and faith in humanity. You would sit here and question somebody like myself who will literally talk to you directly in exchange for a television where you will never speak to the person behind the screen. That is a weakness in you. It classifies you technically as what we commonly refer to as a mental midget. That means you have a hard time figuring out how to get yourself out of a paper bag. That's a really big oversight, and especially if you have kids, you're also putting them. Well, they're already at risk, and they're probably already cooked. So
what? So I didn't get any more out of him. He walked away after that, and the people standing around, by the way, who were his colleagues there, looked at him like they were thinking he should come up with a better answer than that. But he couldn't, and he just turned around and walked away. I really thought he'd have an answer. I really did.
Hey, Don, you're not alone. Even RFK Jr., our HSX secretary, he just lost his granddaughter. His granddaughter was a part of his family that turned on him when he started to run for president. And to prove that they were against him, they had to speak out against everything he's ever said. That means also his research into the dangers of vaccines. The crazy part is to prove that they were not in alignment with RFK Jr., they made the entire royal Kennedy family take the vaccine. They literally sliced off their nose to spite their face. So now the entire Kennedy bloodline is doomed. Within 2 years, they've already had their first death, and it's their granddaughter at 35. Tatiana Schlossberg, I believe is her name. Everyone's going to have their time to shine, right? We can say whatever we want to. I remember there was a doctor named Copeland, famously. He was a big, he was a Facebook and YouTube and Clubhouse doctor. And he used to argue with me. Where's Copeland now? I wonder if he can argue anymore. Can't find him. Well, I mean, I know where he is, but it's up to you guys. Where do you think Copeland is today? All of a sudden, magically. Just like magic. You believe in magic? I believe in magic just as much as I believe in coincidences, vaccines, and viruses. It's crazy. Somebody can tell you something, but never prove it to you. You're listening to Dr. Kerry Mullis. He walked up to the man that allegedly discovered HIV. He asked him a simple question. Can you help me find the reference that can basically where I can use this reference to show that HIV is directly correlated with AIDS? This is the man who literally effectively was the founder of AIDS. And the man, like he said, he knew he should know, but he's not used to anyone asking because they're all hustling. They're all making money from research grants and from writing studies that no one else will be able to independently verify in any other country. So they're all just going to reprint it and go with it. Bad data, unverified information, and junk science. Kerry Mullis went and he asked a simple question. And the man was like, well, I mean, I should know this, but how about you use this new study or this other study about monkeys? And he's like, this doesn't answer my question. Why don't you readily have a reference that would be able to prove that this will easily go from HIV to AIDS? Your problem is your whole life, you never asked the right questions. You didn't ask enough questions to the right people. You're afraid of authority. So you'll question me, but you won't question those gods on your television that told you to stay home and put on a mask. It's not like they even told you in person. No one ever showed up to your house with an AR-15 and forced you to stay in there. Literally, your fucking television controlled you. The TV enforced their rules upon you. It's crazy. When we were kids, they used to tell us that, if we watch too much TV, it's going to melt our brains. I can tell which one of you literally sat in front of a television until your shit turned to fucking jello.
Yeah, I mean, that was my last. I was right at the edge of my faith in the system, but I thought Montagnier will know why he thinks HIV causes it, and he'll tell me. He'll say, because of this study. But he didn't have that. None of those guys have that. And that's why they're so weird. That's why they don't want dissent. They don't want people like me walking up and asking them those kind of questions. And they're willing to go to great lengths to prevent that. They're out on a limb. I wouldn't want to be there with them.
This live went over a lot further than I thought it was. I have 4 other lives I have to do tonight where I'm going over different topics. So do me a favor, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will be back on topics. I'd appreciate if some of you guys can join back into the comments. We had 23,000 people collectively on live on the night before last about the Maduro when he was captured by Trump. And then we drug him through the streets and paraded him around like a circus exhibit. But I appreciate you guys for all tuning in. Please like the channel. The algorithm's starting to pick my stuff up. It's crazy. For the first time, somebody was disagreeing with me yesterday, and he referred to me as a YouTuber. I'm so new to doing this. That's probably the first time anyone's ever called me a YouTuber. I wouldn't know if I'm a YouTuber or not. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just a guy that's just sitting in his guest room talking to my cell phone, which is also my camera. I have a cool mic, a Shure mic I bought, but that's it. I didn't know I was a YouTuber. And yeah, so someone called me that for the first time. So yeah, I mean, like I said, if that's the case, if you like my content, if you don't mind hearing my thoughts on these other subjects, if you're curious about what happened between 2020 and today, and if you're noticing all the death and you want an explanation and you want to figure it out and you have questions, join me. These are the things I focus on and talking about. I'll be honest, 90% of the things I see going on in the world, I can tie it back to the vaccine. So if you believe in that and you want to hear more, like the channel and, come back. I'll be back on in about 20 minutes. I'll see you guys again shortly. Remember, America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.